I would like to welcome Pam Piligian, CMO and SVP of the Navy Federal Credit Union, to the CMO Spotlight. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you, Amanda. It's great to be here.
All right, well, let's dive in. I'd like to hear a couple background questions. Tell me about what your company does, what your role is there, and also a brief synopsis of your career path and how you got there. So that's a big one, but we'll start big and let you kind of give us a career path history and then right up into what you're doing today.
Great. Well, Navy Federal Credit Union is the largest credit union in the world. We serve 13.3 million members, really founded as a member-owned, not-for-profit credit union, open to the military, all branches of service, active duty, veterans, as well as their families. So that's who we serve. We just celebrated our 90th birthday, so we've done that for a while. We're at about 170 billion in assets and really serve people around the world as their active duty jobs travel, cause them to go to those different places. But really here in the US, that's our primary service orientation. There's about 350 branches and we're full service banking. And, I think for me, when you talk about career purpose, I'm kind of the agency geek. I grew up on the agency side and worked at different agencies and different brands and had the chance to come here about 6.5, 7 years ago to lead this brand team. And it was such an exciting opportunity. I knew the brand as Navy Federal was my client. So I knew the brand and I knew the culture. And maybe it's just because I'm a child of the 60s, but just the attraction of being able to really have come full circle and do that at a nonprofit with a real mission and purpose was really, really attractive and luring to me. Our tagline is our members are the mission, and it is true. It's so great to be at a place where the members are truly the North Star, and being here and being part of that and telling our story is exciting job every day.
I love that. Yeah, I get really excited by purpose-driven brands. And, I think that in the last several years, it's become more important to consumers, right? That people are being more thoughtful about where they put their dollars, and making sure that it's a place where there's values alignment and that sort of a thing. So what you said really speaks to me that those are the people you're marketing to and trying to help them, trust in your mission and your purpose. So that's cool. What advice do you wish you had gotten earlier in your career, or what advice would you give someone who's starting out a marketing career now?
I love that question. And my advice is twofold. One is which is be curious. I think people in marketing that really thrive in this business are lifelong learners. They ask good questions. They're always intrigued by the brand and the brand challenges, as well as those that we are talking to. What motivates them, what scares them, so it takes a lot of curiosity to really do your best job in terms of marketing. That said, I also think you have to be uncomfortable with what you don't know. You can be curious, but if you're not uncomfortable enough to ask the question, you're not embracing that ability to be uncomfortable enough to ask the questions, it kind of doesn't really reach its full potential. So the advice is really be curious, but also be comfortable being uncomfortable about what you don't know.
Oh, that's great. That's great advice. Um, so we at Setup believe that everybody has a superpower. What do you think yours is?
I love that question. I have to tell you, my team did the Gallup Strength Finders earlier this year. We did it for the entire team. And that's a very helpful tool in terms of really helping everybody focus on their strengths and then how they contribute to a team. And I had some of the typical ones you might expect from my job in terms of planning and strategy and creativity. But my number one strength was woo. And I took a little bit of a woo. Is that good or bad? And so I think that's my superpower that I'm embracing, more about the woo, which is all about selling and selling sometimes can be a bad word, but I think it's really that selling, positioning, and making sure that people feel welcomed and enticed to try your brand and also to contribute to what the team is doing. So my superpower is woo.
I love that. Well, it seems pretty important in the role that you've got. So I like that's a good one to have. It's a good match. In terms of leadership, where do you find inspiration for your team?
Here, that's easy to answer, and that comes from our members. And you probably heard me mention just in the intro, we serve 13 million members, and they're very diverse. So everything from active duty, all branches of service, to veterans who may have served 4 years or 20 years or 30 years, and now have different jobs as well as their families. So very diverse needs. And I think for me, and one of the things we do here at Navy Federal is monthly, everybody from Management Council spends time in the branch or on the phones listening to our members. And I am always inspired by them because sometimes they're just doing amazing things and you can see it in their heart and their finances. And I also think it helps us be inspired when it's easy to walk a mile in their shoes when you spend time with them and you hear it in their voice and their words and stuff. So they definitely are my inspiration, really every day.
That's great. And what values do you demonstrate as a leader, and what values do you look for in others? You talked about curiosity as something that's important. Are there other values that you find to be really important, in your leadership, as well as the values that you're looking for your team in your team?
There's a long list, and I will always say, at Navy Federal, it's interesting because we are both a value company in terms of offering great services, good pricing, as well as values. So people that align with our values really do fit here, both in terms of a member or as an employee. And for the folks that we're trying to hire, when we're looking at their values, we're looking at authenticity. We're looking at empathy, their ability to show empathy for the members and for each other, their authenticity in terms of being transparent about the challenges they're facing and what they're doing and how they are ready to move forward, what their goals are, ambitions, etc. I think for me, it's one of those, this time of year is a great time to kind of pull back and think about it. And I actually, in prepping for this, talked a little bit about, for me, it's like, I'm all in. I'm here to help. I'm here to support. I'm here to fuel the growth. I'm willing to fail. And I think that's important for not only team members, but leaders, showing that you're willing to fail and that if you're learning, you're not failing. You're just learning, and the outcome might have been a little different than when you first started. I want to be a good storyteller. I think people really relate to the data and the insights, but then they're really motivated by hearing individual personal stories. And those stories really bring that emotional connection to the brand. I favor action over perfection. I think sometimes that's hard because there's so many variables to a very effective marketing campaign. And it can be easy to focus on what didn't work or what didn't really live up to your expectations or even your projections versus what really worked and how do you fuel that and fight that. And then, for me, it's really about fighting for and encouraging growth. And that's for people's personal growth as well as our brand growth. The growth is really important for health. And so I try to make sure that I'm really all in on making sure that people have what they need for that fuel.
That's great. That's a great list of values and, I guess, kind of inherent features of people that you want, working with you. So setup helps marketers thrive by bringing them together with the best people and resources. And that often means that we connect brands and marketing agencies, that they can fill gaps, in their marketing capacity or capability. And because we live in that space in between brands and marketing agencies, we have a unique perspective on that relationship. And we always like to ask a couple of questions about agency relationships. So, how do you work with marketing agencies today at Navy Federal Credit Union?
Well, we have a full service advertising agency that buys our media, but also plans the creative, et cetera. And we also have a direct agency as a specialty, and we have a public relations firm that we work with and an events firm. And I have just found that all of those really I want the integration of all of our dollars working together for the best and most effective program we can have. But I also know that you need to have the specialist at the table to do what's needed. So it's this real combination of generalists and specialists. And I think for me, when we think about the agencies that we hire and that we work with, we try to look for people that are smart, people that are going to invest in the business and learning our business, as well as the members that we serve and our prospects. And really, from there, wanting to be a big part of the story, to tell the brand story and live that for us. So we work with people that both do a great job for us and can be trusted and are responsible, but also that will push us, because we feel like, they've got that perspective that sometimes being inside, we might lose, or we might be a little more complacent. So we really look for both in our partners that we work with.
Yeah, and I have to say, some of my favorite marketers are, brand side marketers are those that have had agency experience in their past, because they really understand the dynamic and the things that make those relationships thrive. And, I think that it's fun when you get that right match, between a brand and an agency. They can do such great things together if they're relying on each other for each other's strengths, right? You guys know the brand itself and the values that you're living by. The agency might come in with some expertise of a particular, capability and that you don't have. So it's really lovely. And hearing you talk about it, I can tell that you get the relationship, which is great. In general, what marketing functions do you typically, you mentioned kind of those various groups that you areas that you're hiring an agency for, but what do you typically outsource to an agency versus what functions do you believe should be kept in-house?
For us, it varies a little bit. And I appreciate your comment about agency people becoming clients, because I think that's often a common path, because you find out that, the client side has a lot of opportunities for you really to impact a brand across disciplines. And sometimes that's hard in the agency world, especially as agencies get more and more specialized. You work only on the advertising portion, or only the marketing or positioning part, or branding, et cetera. So I think that full story often happens, and that integration really happens on the client side. I've also found that former agency folks either make great clients or horrible clients, because you know a little bit about what can happen, which is both a blessing and a curse. So part of what I try to do is make sure I'm using that information for good, not evil. But the types of work that we function out, we don't do any media buying in-house. Media buying is very, I think you need good, smart people. You need a lot of the great analytics, but you need a lot of capabilities to real-time make adjustments. And so we rely on our agency to do all of our, and also negotiating. I think that's hard if you're a client by yourself, trying to just even know what the fair rates are for things. So all of our media is planned and placed outside. And then creatively, our primary agency, does most of the brand work. That said, we do a lot of the things that make that work come to life in our branches, in collateral, in videos, in social media. So that's kind of a shared role, because it will be off the same brief. And we try to make sure that we're often speaking in the same, with the same brief and the same tools. My goal has been achieved when you can look at things and not know if we did it in-house or out. Public relations, we do have a corp comm team, but there's also certain efforts that we will utilize the agency for, whether that is community events, brand storytelling, some of our placements for earned media relative to the business support, and then promotions and events. Promotions and events, we have people on the team that supervise that, but really making those things happen, that's also a specialty. So we'll rely on an events company to do a lot of that for us as well.
Great, great. And in terms of results, so marketing, has over the years has had different reputations for being not measurable, maybe measurable, those sorts of things. As Chief Marketing Officer, how do you show the value of marketing to the rest of the company and to your fellow C-suite officers?
For us here, it helps in that we agree upon those metrics that matter, the KPIs. And yes, it is about brand growth. It's brand awareness, consideration, and trial, some of the traditional ones. For us, it's also about membership growth. How many members have come here? For us, one of the other ones is a softer metric, but we look at it as one of the most important, and that's brand trust. We measure that in our brand tracker and look at that number throughout the year in terms of how do we deposits in the bank that earn trust. So to your question, I love the framing because some of that is very trackable and we can correlate it and with some driver work that we've done. Others of it becomes a little more, it's like a relationship. You earn trust. And what are those things you're doing to earn it? So some of them will have softer metrics. And I think for marketers really to thrive today, they've got to be investing in their brand. That's both a short-term and a long-term gain, as well as investing in the business in terms of what fuels growth. And people will often talk to me about, they'll ask, which of those are you? And I'm like, you have to be both. And I think you see that at more and more brands where people are acknowledging both sides of it are important, and the short-term and the long-term. Really, short-term gains obviously contribute to where we're going long-term.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And is there a campaign or a program, either in this current role or in a past role, maybe agency side where you were working with a brand, but a campaign that taught you the most, either because it was a big flop or because it was a big success?
In my career, I've had both those. I've worked on, at one point, I worked on new products for Ocean Spray. And when I worked on craisins, we talked about it as the raisin trail. And everywhere there was a raisin, we were trying to replace it with a craisin. And some of the early on research talked about that as a perfect snack for children. And after I would go to focus groups and see kids put them on their arms and talk about them as scabs, like, oh, maybe not. But kind of repositioning what was acceptable and what was going to work. And new products are exciting to work on, but it's also like your baby. So because you're involved in so much of the packaging, the promotions and things. So from each one of those, I've had opportunities to learn from. I think for me, it's always exciting. And I think this comes from early in my career. I worked on CPG, and you could get a Nielsen report early on. It was only every 4 weeks. And just seeing the impact directly that a campaign had had on those metrics. And I think that's what really got me addicted to marketing. I have a lot of campaigns I follow that I have a folder on my computer that I call my love to hate folder, which are things that other people did that I wish we had done. So sometimes I learn more from those than maybe the ones that I actually led.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that. I might have to create a love to hate folder. I think that's smart. All right. So just a few more questions that are more light. Is there a brand that you've never worked on that you most admire, and why?
Chick-fil-A, I have to tell you, I think that's a brand that really knows their positioning. They know their way, and they have a strong value system. They're not embarrassed about it. So I really admired them as a brand. I also will tell you, I think they do a nice job with some of their menus where it feels like the brand is a treat, but it's also where it could be an everyday, meal for families. And I love the cows. I think having something speak for you that you can't get at the restaurant was ingenious, and helps them to really punch above their weight in terms of what they spend in the marketplace. And I really have a lot of admiration for them.
Yeah, it's hard when you can't miss a billboard that has 3D cows like climbing up it or coming across it or whatever. They've definitely made their mark, and that's Chick-fil-A like instantly. So I think that's cool.
And think
Um,
about it, the one product they don't sell. You're not going to go there and get a hamburger.
Beef,
So
right? Exactly.
right.
It's cute. And okay, is there a quote or a book or a movie, a song, a band, something like that that inspires you?
I have lots of things that inspire me, and I have a collection of quotes, but I will tell you the one I have taped to my computer, it comes from RGB, and it really is: fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. And to me, that quote is so meaningful because fight for the things that you care about says be selective. Don't fight for everything, or no one's really going to want to work with you and partner with you.
Mhm.
So the things you care about really requires that focus on what, and fight for it means it's not always going to be easy. So acknowledge that and embrace it and be ready. Do it in a way that will lead others to join you tells me two things. One of which is there's very little that we can do by ourselves. So being a good team player and joining with others is important. And doing it in a way that will lead others to join you doesn't say boss them, follow you. It basically says that they're going to lead you in this journey that you're on. So to me, I think that quote does a lot of things in terms of just reminding us of when you push for those things that you want to change or those things you want to do. I looked at that quote from RGB to just remind myself to fight for it, the things that I care about, fight. It's not going to be easy. Care, be selective, and do it in a way that will lead others to join you. You're not going to be able to do it alone.
I love so much, and I'm super sad that I'm not at my home office right now because if I was, you would see my Ruth Bader Ginsburg picture that I have behind. So I too am inspired by her. That quote, I'm going to write that down after this interview and on computer screen. That's a good one. Other than family, where do you find joy outside of work?
I think for me, it's one of the things that I try to think about every day, like have a little bit of joy in everything. So whether it's such a simple thing that just might be a beautiful sunrise in the morning, but just a little happiness. I think for me too, I'm a jogger that wants to be a runner. I'm on a quest to run a marathon in each state. And I do find a lot of joy in running as long as I run for me. I run for it's time to think, it's time to pray, it's time to process, it's time sometimes to cry, sometimes to laugh. But I come back from those runs really feeling much more at peace with myself that some of that joy can come from.
That's great. So is there a fictional story or realm or like a movie that you would like to live in?
You know, I when I read your question, I thought about I took it a little bit differently, and I thought a fictional character that I'd like to have as a neighbor. And for me, that would be Ted
Nice.
Lasso. I mean, a guy who's always positive, and he'll bring you a biscuit every morning, homemade biscuit. And so I kind of thought about it there. The fictional place for me would be as Ted Lasso's neighbor.
I love that. I'd like to be Ted Lasso's neighbor too. I'll take the homemade biscuit and that infectious positivity. Yes, bring it, right? And last question is there a question you wish I would have asked as a part of this conversation? Anything else that you would like to share with this marketing community?
No, but I will tell you, thank you for the interview and thank you for the opportunity. I think for all of us, it's a great sharing because I think we all take comfort sometimes in knowing that some of the struggles we have are really struggles all marketers have, and how we can learn from each other and be inspired from each other versus sometimes always looking at it like we're going to fight with each other. Thank you for that reminder that how much we can all learn from each other.
Oh, of course. That's so kind of you to say. Yes, we enjoy these interviews so much because it just feels like a dose of inspiration that we can get from each other. And, we try to focus on you, the person, versus your specific job necessarily, to just try to see how other marketers tick, what inspires them, what advice they would give, and all in an attempt to inspire the larger marketing community that we live in and work in. So thank you. Thanks for joining us, Pam.
That's great. Well, thank you.